Welcome to the Cinema MD podcast. This is our first horror movie episode. My name is Matt.
And I'm John.
So, if you're a regular listener, you probably, are a little shocked that you don't hear Dana on the other side here. We brought in John today because, Dana didn't watch any horror movies this week.
It's true.
She just kind of ducked out.
Yeah.
So we brought in John, who's another avid movie watcher and a good friend of ours, and he's gonna help me break down a couple horror movies, and we are gonna be basically doing this every Sunday for the rest of October. So let's go ahead and get into it. We chose a couple classics, both from 1980 this week. The first one we're gonna talk about is Prom Night, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, and not really starring, but featuring Leslie Nielsen in a rare non-comedic role.
I mean, he did other more serious things, but yeah, you definitely think of him from the comedic angle, the airplanes and the probably not the Dracula Dead and Loving It, but I personally love that movie.
Naked Gun, maybe?
Oh, yeah, a little bit of Naked Gun.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Naked Gun. So, I had never seen Prom Night prior to watching it this week. It's one of those slasher movies that kind of went under my radar. I mean, growing up, I had seen the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Streets and all the big ones, and I've caught some of the more obscure shit here and there, but Prom Night always kind of evaded me. It was never on TV. I feel like I never really saw it at a video store, so as a kid I never really wanted to watch it, but the fact that it stars Jamie Lee Curtis was kind of a big draw for me. She was kind of like a scream queen back in the day.
Now, you're telling me you never saw this at the video store?
It might not have been that I never saw it. It might have been that whatever was on the cover didn't pique my interest as a young person.
Okay, fair enough. I have distinct memories of seeing all the Prom Night movies at the video store. They are fixed in my mind, and for whatever reason, I thought that they were it was a bizarre scenario where I thought that they were the Halloween movies and not the Prom Night movies, and then as I thought back to it, I was like, oh no, Halloween was always the ones with the pumpkin and the knife. But yeah. So, no, I mean, they're a thing. You can definitely tell it's a thing because when you watch it, it's very much this was made for a mass release. This was not a grindhouse flick. This wasn't like pulpy to a ridiculous degree. It is as classic a slasher as you could want.
No, we've seen some pretty shitty slasher movies, recently. Like if you've heard of a movie called Blood Rage, that would be an excellent example of while funny, and I think intentionally funny. Honestly, there's no way that's unintentional. It's really bad. I mean, it's just a bad movie, but.
Little movie called Blood Diner, maybe?
Blood Diner. Blood Diner is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily call that a slasher. That's more of just like a weird, fucked up horror movie.
Just off the wall.
But Blood Diner is so intentionally funny.
Yeah.
That's not trying to be like, that's not a so bad it's good. That's like it knows it's bad and it's embracing it to the fullest extent. So yes, Blood Diner and Blood Rage. Basically, if blood is in the title,
it's a winner.
it's yeah. Oh boy. So let's get back to our focus here, which is Prom Night with Jamie Lee Curtis. So immediately, Jamie Lee Curtis brings some sort of expectation to this movie in that after Halloween, you're kind of anticipating this maybe not completely shitting the bed. And I don't think it does. I think it if anything, it's one of the more like classy slasher movies that I've seen because it's not gratuitous in any way.
Oh, it shows so much restraint. Like I went into this thinking it would be, there'd be guts hanging from the wall, they'd be dropping buckets of blood on people, you'd have body parts flying this way and that. But no, they do a really good job of saving everything to the end and building up tension and developing the characters. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I'm a gore hound. The next movie we were talking about today is more of the traditional like super gory special effects horror movie. This is definitely, it follows the traditional slasher paradigm or outline, whatever you want to call it. You've got the beginning where there's like a traumatic or tragic event that triggers somebody to want to inflict harm on others later in life. In this case, it's, basically revenge for an accidental death that occurred.
Well, I mean, how much we probably don't care about spoilers, right?
No, we don't
go
care
into
about
this a little bit
We don't
more.
really need to get no. We don't really need to worry about spoilers. It's a movie that's 37 years old now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rough.
So, the spoiler that I was going to mention was, this is a great example of like bullying being the main negative thing, and bullies back in these movies are not like common, normal, everyday bullies here. They want to kill people. Like, they're going right for it. It's like from Goonies. The guy's driving him off the road, gonna run him over. Like,
Although I gotta say though, this is not like the bullies in like
No.
or Stand By Me,
Oh, yeah.
where they're like literally trying to knife people.
right.
This was they were bullies and they were being assholes, but this was still like an accident that happened.
Yes, that's
So
true.
this
And they
is
were
different than that.
For what it's worth, they were little kids, and little kids can be horrible, horrible monsters.
Right, but this was not a teenager with a switchblade chasing around the fat kid.
Yes.
So
yes. It's just symptomatic of movies of that day that the bullies are always like wildly like over the top with everything they're doing.
yes, so that is kind of the setup for the movie. That's like the prologue. Bullies, little kid bullies, cause an accidental death, pretty much pretend it never happened, but somebody knew it happened.
Oh yeah.
So from there, the movie takes a while to really get into any sort of real kills. It does spend way more time than your average slasher kind of establishing the characters and giving them a little bit of personality. And now, my initial impression would be that if there's a slasher movie that isn't gory or doesn't have a lot of big special effects kills, my assumption would be that it has no budget for it, and that's why they don't include them. I don't think that's the case here because it's a good-looking movie. It doesn't look like it was shot on a budget. It's got some nice kind of... The cinematography is pretty nice. You've got some good shots. The picture quality is good. It just doesn't look like a low-budget production.
That's true. And I mean, it's not a shoestring cast either. They go through great lengths to develop a wide variety of characters that only have a couple of scenes and in some cases have no relevance to the larger plot. It's just building the world that these kids live in. And I gotta say that one of the best characters would have to be Slick. He just comes out of nowhere. He had nothing to do with anything. He just shows up and he's amazing.
Slick is he's basically like he breaks the mold of the 80s high school movie, and he's like a likable, popular, chubby dude.
Oh yeah.
And he's got the weed hookup, and he ends up like taking so like let's go back a second here. So this prologue where there was this accidental death caused by a group of kids bullying another kid. The group of kids that did the bullying, they're essentially our main cast that we're following around. Them and the people that they surround themselves with. So Slick is not one of those main kids, but he is like taking one of those girls to prom. That's kind of the setup for who Slick is. And Slick is the best character in this movie, along with the unibrow monster man. He's not actually a monster, he just looks like one. But Slick, it has the best death scene in the entire movie, and it's not gory. It's just like an action scene almost. It's almost like it's like something you'd expect out of like super low budget Fast and the Furious or something like that. I don't even know.
He puts up like an amazing fight. A lot of times in slashers, like you can't beat the villain. Like sometimes you'll fight back really quickly and then you run away, or maybe you stab them and then you drop the knife and you trip and fall, and you know, all the Scream classics. But no, Slick like goes to town, and amazingly, he's in the driver's seat of a car. He does not try to drive away immediately. He tries to back his vehicle over the killer.
Oh yeah, he does not run. He takes the fight to this guy.
Oh, it's amazing.
And that's another thing that you brought up, that he's not the only example in this movie of the victims putting up a good fight.
Oh yeah.
They don't. The victims, because they were they were bullies, but they were also little kids, and they didn't really know what they were doing necessarily, and it didn't seem like it was like super malicious what they did. They were just kind of being dickish little kids. So it's not like you are more sympathetic towards them because they didn't like commit some horrible atrocity really. and they don't just pick them off one by one like it's no big deal. Like every character basically puts up a fight, with the exception of I don't even know what the character's name is. The guy, the big jock with the unibrow.
Oh yeah.
Like he's just a ridiculous, over the top caricature, and he's pretty much the only character that is that way.
Well, and I think that you kind of get away with killing him right off the bat because he's not sympathetic. Like he made those kind of mistakes as a kid, but then he persisted throughout. Like he's setting up some elaborate revenge scheme on one of the girls for prom night, and he's doing it largely because he's a jerk and he wants to make other people feel bad. So he's really the only one of the kids that you're kind of rooting for getting killed, which normally in these kind of things, the kids are responsible for this stuff, and you are rooting for all of them to get killed because that's the point of the movie. But yeah, no, I appreciate that they put at least one of them in there, but I think it's a testament to the character building that they do throughout the rest of the movie that you actually do care a little bit about the characters. You want to see them, survive.
Yeah, and I don't want to make... maybe we're making it sound like this is a masterpiece.
No, I don't mean to oversell it.
Yeah, we're just trying to say, in the grand scheme of the slasher movie subgenre...
For the genre, yes.
This is a good one, and it's... Again, I don't want to say it's a good one. If you're a gore hound and you just want to see some really bloody guts, kills, shit flying everywhere, this probably isn't the movie for you. But if you're looking for a movie that like actually has some tension, some build up, some decent characters, it's not a shitty movie.
If you want to watch a scary movie, but you don't actually like scary movies, this is a good one for you because it's not like a Nightmare on Elm Street that's going to give kids nightmares. It's a character-driven drama with a revenge subplot that is overtly a hearkening to the tropes of the slasher genre.
And again, a lot of these movies from back then, maybe seeing it on the big screen really loud, maybe that would have amped up some of the like jump scares. But this isn't really a movie that super relied on jump scares either, much to kind of the opposite of other slasher films, I guess, in the day.
Yeah.
You've got a lot more tension building than anything else. And it's not, again, it's not a masterpiece. It's not like that tense. You're not like freaking out the whole time at the edge of your seat. You can just tell it's a good movie. And I enjoyed it. Again, Leslie Nielsen's in it. He doesn't really do a whole lot, but he's sure in it.
Yeah, I think he does a good job of setting up a side plot that creates a red herring partway through the movie, which is important because they don't want you to predict the identity of the masked slasher. And they do a good job of providing plenty of people that have opportunity and motive to want to get revenge on all these kids. So they do their homework. It's not it's got to be X, Y, or Z,
And they do throw in, a little bit of nudity for good measure. There's you've definitely got your typical, teens having sex and smoking weed, and boy, they do get killed like right after that. Like there's not even a scene in between.
Rule of the genre: we see your tits, you must die.
Yep, smoked a joint, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Until Cabin in the Woods, flip that one a little bit there.
Yes, but that does a good job of turning a lot of that stuff on its head.
True. So yep, I don't know, what would your grade if you had to give one for Prom Night? You can make up your own grading scale. We don't really have one set in stone yet here.
Okay, well, on a scale of Dreamcatcher, which is the worst movie I have ever seen, to, let's say, Cabin in the Woods, which is an excellent horror movie, I would give this a solid Sleepaway Camp. Yeah, it's a good movie.
A solid transgender reveal at the end of the movie.
Well, nothing so shocking as that, but I'm talking about the you know what? Don't question my thing. You said I could use whatever scale I wanted. Using move on. You give it you grade it.
Sleepaway Camp, I think, is a good comparison. It's a comparable slasher movie. Sleepaway Camp maybe relies a little too heavily on a twist ending, like that's kind of weird.
Sure.
And some really shitty flashbacks in that movie. Holy crap! But In terms of the setup, the characters, the kind of lack of gratuitous gore, yeah, I would say Sleepaway Camp is a pretty damn good comparison. Both enjoyable slasher movies. I'll give it my number. I'll rate it out of 10 just to give it something here. I'm gonna give it a 6, which in slasher terms that makes it a pretty high fucking score. Anything that's above like an average mediocre movie and it is a slasher movie puts it on the upper echelon of slasher movies. Not to say that all slasher movies are bad. I really like them, and I really like a lot of the bad ones too, but mostly for,
It is kind of
and entertainment purposes. But
it is a golden curve, though. There's the ones that are amazing, and then there are the ones that are so terrible and so schlocky that they're great to watch. But then there's a lot of shovelware right in the middle that people just churned out because it was what was selling.
And I would say this is a step above any sort of mediocre stuff. This is a well-made movie.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears now because the other movie that we watched this week came out in the same year, and I really, it couldn't be much more different.
Other side of the coin, man.
It's not a slasher movie, not in any way. This is a movie by Lucio Fulci, and he's well known for doing like the Zombie, probably his like most well known movie, Zombie and Zombie 2. City of the Living Dead. City of the Living Dead has surprisingly little to do with the undead. I mean, I guess technically it does deal with the undead, but they're not zombies. There's no zombies in this, really. These are more like, I don't think it's actually explained other than it's like some weird ancient book with a prophecy and dead people come back, but then they can teleport and they have powers and who fucking knows.
Well, that's interesting. How would you define zombie? Because you would say the guys from 28 Days Later are zombies, right?
Yeah, but they're zombie again. I guess they're zombies in a looser sense. Like, you can define it however you want. Are zombies literally? Do they have to be just dead people shuffling around? Like, do they have to be dead and then come back to life to be a zombie? Because obviously that's not what happens in 28 Days Later.
Right. Well, I'm saying if you're saying that dead people coming back and shuffling around that are not, vampires or whatever, are zombies, I think you could make a case that the creatures here could loosely be defined as zombies. But if they are, they're pretty OP because they have powers, like you mentioned, teleporting around. And then the zombie master has all kinds of magic.
And I don't really know. There's no like if you get bitten, you're not going to turn into one. There's no like strict infection rule.
No, but to be fair, I don't think they bite anybody. They do that. I mean, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, they do a cool thing that they love to do.
Oh,
it's an effect that I thought was neat, and then they used it like 4 more times, and it never got old.
It's great. It's very unique.
So I guess we can go into just the basic plot of City of the Living Dead, so we can kind of discuss where it goes from. What happens.
Yes.
Because the plot is not where Prom Night was, I thought, pretty well written, and the plot was easy to follow, and it was a pretty streamlined plot. City of the Living Dead kind of goes all over the place with 2 separate storylines until they basically intersect for the 3rd act. So you've got basically one storyline that takes place in the city of Dunwich, and that's where a priest hangs himself.
Don't let the name confuse you. This has nothing to do with Cthulhu, anything. They just like the name Dunwich because our dear director there,
Fulci?
A bit of the spaghetti touch to these kind of things. He's got to pull as much as he can, and Dunwich sounded like a great New England town, so there you go.
So this priest hangs himself, and of course this was some sort of prophecy that this priest would hang himself. And then the dead would rise on, what was it, All Saints Day at midnight or something like that?
Who makes these prophecies? Who's the one? Who writes this stuff down?
There was, what was it, some sort of book of something or other?
Yes, it was distinctly not the Necronomicon, but let's call it the Necronomicon for all intents and purposes.
I don't know if I'm reading the back of the Blu-ray here, and it doesn't say shit, but it was the book of something.
Yes.
Some sort of name. And... then you've got another character who's essentially a witch that performs a seance and sees this priest die, and like, oh no, she warns everybody that the undead are coming, but then she dies.
Well, because the character breaks the circle, which apparently is a thing you can't do in seances.
Yeah, she broke the circle on the seance because she saw like an undead monster man.
Yeah.
And it freaked her out, and she let go, and then she broke the circle and she died.
I've never heard of that before. Breaking a seance causes you to die? I think they made that out for this movie.
I mean, it's a horror. You can make up whatever rules you want.
Sure. Well, if anyone's heard of any other movies that you can't break the seance or bad stuff happens, by all means. They did a seance in not Thinner. What is it? Drag Me to Hell, didn't they?
Yeah, and then there was a talking goat.
Yes, yeah, the goat.
Talking goat was amazing.
Yeah. Anyway,
okay.
So yeah, she dies.
So she dies.
She gets buried.
Yeah, she gets buried. Then of course there's like a reporter looking into her death, who then hears her screaming from her coffin.
Because she didn't actually die.
She didn't die. She like popped back up.
She was buried alive.
Yeah, so she wasn't dead apparently. She was just knocked out or temporarily dead or whatever. But she didn't come back as like an undead. She actually came back to life. Whatever. I don't really know how that works.
She's crossed the veil.
So we've got character group 1 established here as this reporter and this witch who comes back from kind of dead, and they decide they're going to investigate what the witch woman saw during the seance. So that leads them to go check shit out in Dunwich. Back in Dunwich, we've got Dudeman with a beard. I don't know what his name is. I don't really remember any of the characters' names in this.
They're unimportant.
They are not. Yeah, you've got a good-looking guy with a well-trimmed beard who is clearly our primary protagonist here. Him and his what is his son?
I think so. Yeah.
His son and his girlfriend, wife, whatever you want to call it. So you got them as like the group in Dunwich. So they're kind of like at ground zero as shit starts to get weird. So you've got one group heading there, one group already there.
To be clear, Dunwich knows about this prophecy and knows that the priest hung himself, so they have news reports going out on the regular saying, stay inside, barricade yourself. We're pretty sure the gates of the death have opened up and the living dead will be coming out. And they're actually pretty cool with it, and no mass media coverage, so I guess it was a busy day.
Yes, very realistic.
Yeah. Just dudes hanging out at the bar. It's fine.
Hey, whatever, man. Fake news.
Yeah. I mean, bad time to think that.
Don't believe everything you read.
Here on the radio too.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure.
What? They got. You didn't know that fucking the only radio station they have is Alex Jones?
Oh no!
InfoWars is all they have in Dunwich, so nobody believes shit.
Dunwich is worse than I thought.
So, anyways, you've got these two storylines that meet up. Suffice to say, the basic plot of the movie is not that. There's not a whole lot going on. They meet up. They discuss this prophecy and how to stop it, which is basically to kill the dead priest again.
Yeah.
So they go out in search of him, whatever. That's the plot of the movie. What's more important is that this movie has some really creative special effects in the kill department, in the gore department. And they're really what the movie's all about.
Oh, yeah.
The plot is secondary. The characters are secondary. The kills are front and center.
And they come quick, and oh boy, there's some stuff that I honestly didn't think they were going to do, and they did it. So, good job.
So, one of the first kills, and this is like almost like a double whammy, because you get two characters dead in different ways, and it's really cool. It's this couple in a car, they're making out, whatever.
Oh, so cool. Here we go.
Then you get Mr. Undead Priest just shows up outside their vehicle and stares at them.
Just
apparently
teleport.
Yeah, the monster, the undead in this movie, they have this ability to just appear and disappear wherever they want to, which you think would make them super ridiculous, and they kind of are, but then when it actually comes time when people start trying to kill them, they just kind of stand there, so I don't really get how their power... They can selectively use their powers, I guess?
Yeah,
when
maybe...
it's plot appropriate?
Set number of times per day, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, for the priest, at least, you could make the argument he can't actually teleport. Maybe it's astral projection, because he doesn't physically interact with anything until the end, when they actually go to his tomb. Because if he could just teleport, why would they go to his tomb? He could just be anywhere.
It's true.
So, but maybe the other zombies, I don't know. It doesn't make sense why the regular zombies would be stronger.
Regardless,
doesn't matter.
Plot is somewhat insignificant. It's not a great plot. So this first big kill, this couple's in a car, and main zombie priest man shows up and just stares into their souls.
Uh-huh.
The girl stares right back at him. starts bleeding out of her eyeballs. Looks really cool, like straight up just blood
The
pouring
effect
out of
is
her eyes.
great because you can see, like, it's not out of the side of the eye. It's filling up the eye, like the white sclera of the eye is going and turning completely red. And honestly, it was a little uncomfortable to watch because that actress had some crazy nonsense being poured directly into her eyeball.
And as that's happening, her mouth starts kind of foaming. And then the foam turns red. And then it starts bubbling. And then stuff starts coming out of her mouth. And I'm talking like some serious solids coming up here.
Oh, it is very obviously entrails.
It is. She is literally vomiting up pig intestines. It's primarily intestinal tract.
Yeah.
But then at the end there, you've got like some sort of organ that pops out.
Yeah, it's like some white tripe or something. I don't know what the organ is.
Followed by some sort of fucking pig kidney or something.
Oh,
Who knows?
it's a whole
Anyways,
mess.
And it's all covered in, obviously, like, basically they stuffed that poor woman's mouth full of pig guts and food dye. And holy shit, do I feel bad for her. But it looked really cool.
You know what? She's a worker. She put in a good day's work for that because that is a great looking scene.
So her eyeballs bleed. She pukes up her guts. Then finally, her boyfriend, who's been trying to get some this whole time without noticing that his girlfriend is puking up guts, he finally notices. Once, this has been going on for like 2 minutes. He finally notices.
Very distracted.
And he's like, "Ah," and he tries to run away. And then what happens? Well, the girlfriend is now full-on undead zombie monster. So she grabs the back of his head and just straight up squeezes until skull crushes, brain crushes, and like brain oozes out as she like crushes his skull, and she rips off his scalp with skull and brain in it. And it's just super fucking cool looking.
It looks so good, and honestly, that's the right way to kill someone. If you have a hand grip strength that can crush skull, go for the cerebellum. You can't survive without that. Anything else, they might survive. And you're going straight for the kill.
And this is a kill that is reused like 3 other times in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Including, spoiler, including near the end of the movie, they kill our sleazy reporter friend who dug up the not dead witch. He also gets grabbed right in the back. Like, they use this so many times, but it looks so cool. It sounds so gross.
And I gotta say, the emphasis on the brains makes me think that those guys are supposed to be zombies because they're going for the brains. They're not eating them.
Well, at least they don't show the eating.
Right. That might have been too far for the director, right?
So there was another side plot in this movie that, for the life of me, I'm not entirely. I feel like I need to watch this again because I'm not entirely sure what the fuck was going on or why it was important in any way.
Oh, it had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. So there's like a dude who apparently everyone thinks is like some sort of child molester murderer.
Yeah, it's heavily implied that he has
like a mental illness or something, like a handicap.
Some kind of handicap, and people don't trust their children around him. It's kind of like the character from Straw Dogs, if you've seen that also.
Yep. So kind of like the mentally handicapped dude in Straw Dogs. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the vibe I got from him. Anyways, he ends up he basically runs away from one of these undead things that he saw,
right,
and ends up in this garage like hiding out, and a girl, like a teenage girl, lives there and like tries to smoke him down, basically.
Yes,
tries to get him some weed.
Implied communication between a daughter and this guy, which of course does not go over well when the dad finds them.
And not only does it not go well, the dad accidentally turns on a drill press.
But once it's on, you can't just turn it off. You gotta use it.
The scene has been set.
Yeah.
So instead of just making this guy leave or calling the cops, he fucking jams this guy's head down on the drill press and then proceeds to push the drill straight through his temple and out the other side of his skull.
Now, we were watching this and I was saying, no way. The guy's gonna get away. We haven't had any development for him. He's got to be used in something. Maybe he joins up with the main group. And, maybe some kind of vengeance, or we thought maybe this guy would come back to life and seek vengeance on the father.
Oh, and it's such a slow build-up as you see the drill just slowly inch towards his head.
Agonizing. They take so long building it up, but nope, sure enough, straight through the head, and it's a great prosthetic. I always look for head explosions in these kind of movies, but honestly, a drill through the head, just as good. So
it literally
10
goes
out of
in
10.
one temple and out the other.
10 out of 10. Perfect movie.
It was a
10
great.
out of 10.
It was a great kill. But again, this character. Please, if somebody is an expert on City of the Living Dead, please tell me the significance of this character and what he did in this movie that was important to the overall plot, if anything. Because if we're missing something, I'd like to be called out on it. Because, quite honestly, I got up to pee in this movie. Maybe I missed it. I don't know.
My theory is they had this prosthetic head sitting around, and they were like, well, we got to use this somehow. So they just cast a guy who looked kind of like the head, and they're like, okay, we're using you. And he had no acting talent, so they're like, okay, well, we'll get the kill out of it anyway.
I guess.
It's difficult to tell.
Anyways, long story short, with City of the Living Dead, I won't even say bad plot, because it was really just the plot was pretty thin, and it was pretty unimportant overall, because it's not a very cohesive narrative. Like, there's weird, like all this, like in one scene there's just like fucking maggots that start flying through the air into a window. Everyone gets covered in maggots. Who knows why?
It's like a hailstorm through the window, but it's maggots instead. So they're just going everywhere. It's like, wow, you guys, I don't know if you stopped by a bait shop or something was going out of business, but they had so many creepy crawlies. Like, this puts Temple of Doom to shame.
So, yes, this is a movie that I highly recommend for any horror fan. I would say the average movie watcher would enjoy Prom Night more than this. But I will say that the average horror aficionado will enjoy City of the Living Dead more.
If you like pulp, oh, they got plenty.
Yeah, if you're one of those people that, like myself, you don't get squeamish from anything that happens in a movie. Like, it doesn't matter what scene it is. It doesn't matter how gory it is. It doesn't matter how ridiculous and sick it gets. If it's in a movie, like, I can always tell, I always have this thing where I can, like, tell the difference between what's real and what's not. Gore in movies never bothers me. Like, I always just am entertained by it. I can take it at what it is. Some people can't. Some people really, really cannot handle gore in movies, and that's fine. If you're one of those people, City of the Living Dead maybe isn't for you, because it does get, while it's over the top, it's also pretty fucking gross in a couple of scenes.
Oh, yeah. If you can't disassociate, I would say maybe consider not watching this guy. But, if you love those kind of things in films, go for it.
Yep. So, on your scale of shitty horror movies to good horror movies, what do you give City of the Living Dead?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to use a different scale for this one because you gave me sass for that last one. So I'm going to say from the lowest, which is going to be Land of the Dead, to the highest, which is going to be Night of the Living Dead. I'm going to give this a solid Dawn of the Dead.
That's like you're saying the low end of that grading scale is not that low.
I mean,
Land of the Dead was not a bad movie.
It wasn't great. I think you like that movie better than I like that movie.
Dennis fucking Hopper,
Oh, Dennis Hopper was great. You know what I don't like? Zombie Moses. Not a fan.
He didn't part the Red Sea. He just showed all the zombies that they could walk under the sea.
He parted the Dead Sea. That was terrible. Can we cut that out?
Listen,
No?
I'm not going to knock on any zombie movie made by George Romero.
Okay, fine.
I refuse. They all have good social satire. They all are greater than the sum of their parts. And he's dead now, so don't talk shit about him.
I wasn't talking. I was
talking mad shit.
Oh, boy.
Mad shit about Land of the Dead.
I can't make a
talking
scale.
Mad shit about George Romero.
Can't make a scale. I'm saying middle of the road. It's fine. It's good. If I were to use a number thing, I would give it a 3 out of 4.
Wait. Which Dawn of the Dead? Remake or regular?
The one that has Johnny Cash song in the beginning.
Okay, so we're talking remake of Dawn of the Dead on the scale.
Yeah.
Which is probably, I guess it really depends. It was a good remake.
It was a good remake.
But can it really be compared to the original? I don't know. They're both good. It's a good remake. So I'm not going to touch that one, although the undead zombie baby was really fucking weird and stupid. Everything else about that movie I liked.
Yeah. It's like the modern day living out in a mall. It's the kind of stuff that would inspire Dead Rising and all that later on.
And if I'm giving Prom Night a 6, I'm going to give City of the Living Dead a 7 because to me it's just a more entertaining movie. I think its production value is similar. It's a good-looking movie in general. It doesn't look like it was shot with a fucking 8mm Handycam back in 1980. It looks like it was, shot on 35mm. It looks good. Good picture. Lucio Fulci knows what he's doing. He's a good filmmaker. He's got an eye for horror movies. He knows how to orchestrate an elaborate kill scene, and he really has a good special effects guy. So, in general, yeah, it doesn't have plot, it doesn't have character development, but what it does have is a lot of really entertaining scenes that do enough, in my opinion, to elevate the movie above the average horror garbage that's out there.
I agree. If I had one complaint about City of the Living Dead, it would be for a movie called City of the Living Dead, there's only about 4 zombies and like 4 or 5 mummies at the end and 1 zombie master. It's hardly a city. I don't think you could reasonably call it a neighborhood, honestly.
No, it's more like PTA meeting of the Living Dead.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, if you're listening, Fulci, are you still alive? I don't really know.
Ooh, spooky.
I know. I'll have to IMDb that one later. Anyways, PTA meeting of the Living Dead. Think about it. I think it'd be a good one.
Get back to us.
Starring Nicolas Cage.
You can have it. That's free. Come on.
So, that does it for our first horror movie episode. Those are our 2 reviews. Next week, we haven't decided what we're going to review yet. So, I know we haven't really gotten any movie suggestions yet from listeners, but please feel free to email us, cinemamdpodcast@gmail.com. Cinema MD Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter, and you can post comments on the website on all the video posts. We've got a bunch of reviews up there too.
Leave a comment on YouTube. That's how I watch it.
Yep. We've got basically auto uploads of all the episodes that they'll show up on YouTube. We'll eventually have some other YouTube content up there too. I want to do some videos and things like that, so we'll get around to that as well. Remember that next week we are doing the same thing where we have an episode on Thursday and then an episode on Sunday. Thursday we're going to be reviewing Blade Runner 2049 along with probably one other new release. I haven't decided what we're going to be doing yet. So again, if you have anything you really want to see at this point, I'd say the first person that suggests something probably going to have some good sway over us because we have not decided yet.
You win all the prizes.
And then next Sunday we'll have 2 more great horror movies, or maybe not so great horror movies, but there'll be some classics, I'm sure, thrown in there at some point.
Yeah.
So
see if we can hit a 1 and a 10. That'd be objectives here.
We'll do what we can.
Yes.
I don't even know what a 1 looks like. It looks like Blood Rage.
It looks like friggin' Dreamcatcher is what it looks like. Ooh.
Shit weasels.
Oh, shit
For
weasels.
days, motherfucker.
Oh, duddits. Poor duddits.
All right. We've been rambling. I'm going to call it quits. Thanks for listening to the Cinema MD podcast. We'll be back next Thursday. Thanks for listening.
See you.